Okay, there's a lot of things going on right now to sterilize people, and I'm sure this is all a coincidence. I really don't think that the billionaire perverts who run the world plan this on purpose. I'm sure it's all just a coincidence. First of all, soy is subsidized, which is super, super estrogenic and can damage the reproduction system in both men and women, lowering sperm counts and damaging female reproductive system, fallopian tubes and whatnot. Estrogen, when present in high levels, does a few things. First of all, it's a fat storage hormone causing weight gain. It's an obesogen. Secondarily, when a woman's estrogen levels are high, like with the birth control pill, EE2, ethinyl estradiol, it tells her not to ovulate. So they decrease fertility, okay? And they also decrease sperm production. They're associated with high estrogen levels are associated with decreased testosterone levels in men. Okay, GMO corn. It's sprayed with atrazine, one of the most powerful estrogenics known to mankind. It can turn the male frog into a female. High fructose corn syrup, which is made out of the corn to sweeten most of the processed foods, is often contaminated with mercury, which is neurotoxic. All of these things are decreasing general overall health, making it less likely a person will breed, be able to attract a mate, and be successful in the whole process of courtship, reproduction, and child raising. Okay, tap water. It's too expensive to remove the estrogenic chemicals, which would require carbon filtration of the tap water, so it's not widely done in significant amounts. Aluminum is added to the tap water, which lowers sperm production and is also a metalloestrogen and bad for fertility. F minus fluoride is neurotoxic. It makes people stupider. It also is damaging to the male sperm production. Okay, modern milk is made from pregnant cows. The cows are engineered to make milk while they're pregnant, which means the estrogen levels are very high, because estrogen levels are very high in a pregnant animal. Okay. Also, if you're eating meat, they give estrogen to livestock to make them fatten up quickly. Okay, it's a fat storage hormone. It sort of tells the body, keep some weight on, gain some weight, because the baby might need that for energy. Okay, baby formulas in an aluminum can with BPA lining and estrogenic neurotoxic mitochondrial inhibitor, sweetened with high fructose corn syrup that has been sprayed with atrazine and soy, and maybe a soy milk type of baby formula. It's basically, that's been described as child abuse, all right? I think it was McDougall who said most baby formulas are child abuse, all right? And then take a look at air pollution. The trails of aluminum in the sky, that's not to do you a favor, okay? It's to destroy your soil and to poison you with the metalloestrogen, okay? So whoever's doing that, they're not doing it because they like you, okay? If somebody destroys your food supply and pollutes your air to cause brain damage and these endocrine diseases, they're not doing that because they like you, okay? Now they're going to say, oh, it's for the climate. It's going to help the climate, okay? How is poisoning the soil and the air going to help the climate, okay? The same people who have turned your cities into third world crap holes are the ones who are telling you to trust them to improve the environment. Yeah, right. Okay, stevia is associated with increased risk of infertility. That's a common artificial sweetener. Electropollution, all the geniuses carrying a cell phone in their front pocket. Not good for the male or the female gonads, and the back pocket's not so great either. You can increase your risk of rectal cancer. The front pocket's not so great. A couple decades of that, you increase your risk of breast cancer. So how about keeping it separate from your body to the extent that's possible? Or imagine not even having one on you all the time. Could you imagine that? Somehow we managed to grow up without them, okay, and do just fine. I don't even have one, I don't see a need for one. I don't need one. Let's see, what else? Deodorant. We talked about that before in the lectures on breast cancer. It contains aluminum and metalloestrogen through the shared lymphatics of the armpit, axilla, and the breast. The incidence of upper outer quadrant breast cancer has approximately doubled since the 1920s. It was about 30%. Now it's about 60%. Plus, there's additional estrogenic preservatives in deodorant that get transdermally absorbed because the skin's largely fat, like dissolves like in chemistry. So you just suck these things into your body. In addition, a lot of women, they'll shave their armpits before applying the deodorant. So then you get increased transdermal absorption, increased estrogen absorbed into the lymphatics going to your breast, causing proliferation of breast ductal cells and increasing breast cancer risk. Not a smart thing to do. When you walk in a room, you say hi. You don't sniff each other's armpits like a dog. Okay, high fat diet associated with causing atherosclerosis, making men impotent. Tons of guys are impotent. You know, it's at least in the ballpark of the number of the decade and the percentage of men. So in the 30s, about 30% of men become impotent. In the 40s, about 40%. In the 50s, about 50%. In the 60s, about 60%. Okay, and it's probably a little more than that from what I've seen. Okay, sad diet, increased incidence of polycystic ovary syndrome. A lot of women have polycystic ovary syndrome. I've seen a lot of female doctors with polycystic ovary syndrome. Okay, the sad diet has a lack of dietary fiber, so the good gut bacteria feed on dietary fiber. Okay, so if you don't have the dietary fiber, you get bad gut bacteria, and they will have more of an enzyme called glucuronidase. The liver excretes estrogen into the bile, and then when it conjugates it with glucuronic acid, and that enables it to be removed from our body by defecation. But when you got bad gut bacteria, they got more glucuronidase enzyme, which deconjugates the estrogen, meaning that it separates the glucuronic acid from the estrogen that had been excreted by the liver. And then this non-conjugated, now free estrogen is reabsorbed into the body. So people who don't maintain a good bacteria by lack of dietary fiber and other problems, like eating the processed food with the GP on a glyphosate, which is also originally like patented as an antibiotic, that will damage the good gut flora. Anyways, they absorb more estrogen, so they have higher blood levels of estrogen, so they got more fibroid tumors, making them infertile. They're more likely to have, the high estrogen levels contributing to infertility. Plus, they have more breast cancer. It's all bad. Okay, then there's like the trickery of the grade school and high school students, confusing them about their gender. They're confused about their gender because of what they're taught in school. They're also confused about their gender because of all these estrogenic chemicals that are affecting them, feminizing them. Okay? And then once if they're innocent enough, naive enough to say they've confused about their gender, there'll be some public school person that will try to gender affirm, castrate them, and prevent them from ever having a chance at having children. They encourage men to get vasectomies, which is a relatively irreversible form of birth control. And it's actually, I think, a stupid thing to do because I've seen tons and tons of guys with chronic aching and swelling in their balls after they get a vasectomy. I would never do that. Okay, encourage promiscuity amongst women. Women who are promiscuous when they're young, they're much less likely to ever have a happy marriage. It messes them up psychologically. In addition, women can have a sexually transmitted disease that's relatively asymptomatic, and it can sclerose off their fallopian tubes and cause infertility. So everybody likes to make fun of Christianity and traditional values, but you know what? Not sleeping with anybody or keeping it to a minimum before you get married actually is more likely to lead the person to having a successful, happy marriage and a big, happy family, and not ending up divorced or, with no kids, alone as a cat lady. Encourage feminism so that women become toxic to men. This whole feminism thing is kind of a big craziness. And, men and women need each other. We're kind of made for each other. That's just the way it is, okay? Women don't have the physical strength to do a lot of the things that men do. Plus, society's becoming more and more, sadly, violent and hostile to women, okay? Look at the decline of women, in my lifetime, okay? Back in the 1970s, a woman could just be average looking, not even pretty. None of my friends, I never once was attracted to any of my friends' moms, except this one guy whose dad was like CEO of a company, had this young trophy wife. She's the only one of my friends' moms who I thought was pretty. Okay, and I say that because all of these women I knew back in those days, 1970s, America was so rich, none of them worked, okay? Whenever you went to your friend's house, their mom was home, and that meant you couldn't do a lot of things, okay? We would try to find somebody who was divorced, because then you could have a party with no mom, no parents around, because the mom would be working, the father's not around because they're divorced. Okay, that's where all the parties happen. That's where the drinking alcohol happened. That's where people fooled around with girls. Okay, so what I'm trying to say now, gosh, your women are so poor, they all have to work, they have hardly any kids, a lot of them can't find a husband, they're infertile. And they're not even going to be able to get a job, in the SEX trades, okay? Those things have already been maxed out, and they're going to save films of stuff from the, the old decades, so there's going to be so much unlimited competition, they won't be able to make money with that. They try to play a sport, and there's going to be some trans man, beating them up, okay? It's kind of crazy. And then what I see is there's guys like Andrew Huberman, who's got 5 or 6 women, and then most guys I know don't have a woman. Okay, most guys I know they're incels. What's that? Involuntary celibates. Okay, so women, that's one thing about women. In general, women have much better social knowledge than men. Countless times in my life, whenever I'm confused about something socially, I would talk to a woman, my mom or a friend, a lady friend, whatever, and they would figure it out faster than me. Okay, I've been amazed at how good they are at that. Okay, I think they're designed to run families. Okay, they just have great social smarts compared to men. But on the other hand, it's been my experience too. Women are not very good at being able to tell if the guy they're going out with is banging a bunch of other women. Because I've known that I've had a lot of friends that were real successful guys, real tall, good looking guys and stuff. And it's pretty common. They had at least 3 girlfriends. Quite often, I've seen them have 5 simultaneous. And I'm like, the women don't seem to know or don't seem to care. That's kind of weird, but I've seen that a lot. And believe me, they have no intention of ever marrying those women. Okay, I can tell you things that they said to me. I knew this one real good-looking guy. I'm not going to say where I was at, but it's a real famous hospital and stuff. And he basically said, look, American women, they're very promiscuous. It's kind of fun to fool around with them. Okay, he says, but I would never marry one. My family's going to make me marry somebody from my own group. So anyways, I'm just saying that because I see that as a common other thing that leads to not relationships working out, et cetera, et cetera. They're hoping for marriage with some guy who's going out with 5 women. That's not going to happen, okay? So also, family is sort of degraded in the mind of the women. I know a lot of young women who just basically thought, being a housewife, sit around being a slave for your husband, like that was some type of terrible life compared to going out in the work world. And I think it seems that way when they're young. In their 20s, it's kind of fun to go to work and talk to everybody and stuff. But pretty soon, you see the happiest women are the ones that went and had a baby, okay? And the luckiest ones are the ones that can retire from the workplace and just stay home with their kids. That's what the person really wants to do. And so then they get older and they realize they're just doing the same meaningless stuff for some corporate company that just wants to make money and doesn't care about them at all. Whereas at home, they're the queen. Mama is the most important person in the house, okay? And then by the time they get around to having kids, a lot of them are infertile. And the infertility rates now are going through the roof. They're much higher than anything I've ever seen before. And I know some people that work in infertility clinics, and they tell me there's just tons and tons of patients. And they say PCOS is the most common thing that they're seeing. Let's see, what else? But then the other thing is it's okay. The what is open down south. Lots of people to replace you, to vote away your freedom. Isn't it great? And I'm sure this is all a coincidence. I'm sure this isn't like some planned convergence of things to cause infertility of the native population. Of course not.